Does the Bible contradict itself when it comes to you being saved? That was the heart of the question I recently got. Someone said, Pastor Mike, at your church, you teach salvation by faith. But in the book of James, chapter 2, James talks about how essential good works are. It feels like that part of the Bible is contradictory to the whole New Testament. So why is that? Well, that's a good Bible interpretation question. And if you think of it, it's super personal because it's saying, how do you get to heaven? How do you get right with God? How can you know today that God's not mad at you, going to punish you, or send you to hell? Well, let's start with the big picture. This person is correct. I do teach that salvation is by grace and through faith. It's a gift that comes from God. Ephesians chapter 2 is maybe the clearest passage on this. It says, it is by grace that you have been saved through faith. And this is not from yourselves. It's the gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. So why am I going to heaven? The answer is not me. It's Jesus, period. It's not me and Jesus tag teamed. I was pretty good. And then he forgave a couple of my sins. And together we're good enough for God. No, on the cross, Jesus said, it is finished, which means he paid the whole debt of our sins so that through faith in him, through that undeserved love that he gave to us, we can be good with God. Which seems super clear and beautiful and inspiring, but then you get to a passage like James chapter 2. Here's what verse 24 says. You see that a person is considered righteous by what they do and not by faith alone. And this person is smart enough to read that and say, well, hold up. How can Ephesians 2 and James 2 both be true? Isn't that a contradiction? Are you right with God, righteous in his sight by what you do or simply by what Jesus did? This is a good question. And actually in church history, this chapter has been a topic of fierce debates. It was such a troublesome thing that at one time Martin Luther, he got mad at the book of James because it was so troublesome for his claim that we are saved by grace and through faith. So what's the interpretation? Well, whenever the Bible seems to contradict itself, it's really important to do two things. One is to read what the actual passage says, and then it's to zoom out and read the context of what that passage says. So here's what I see at the start of this section on faith and deeds. James chapter 2, verse 14 says this. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? And James' answer is no. Faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by actions, is dead. So here's the problem that James is getting at. Some people claimed to have faith. They claimed to be believers in Jesus. They said, oh yeah, I believe in Jesus. But there's no evidence that their hearts had been changed by Jesus. Think of it this way. If my body is alive, my heart will beat and my lungs will breathe. Right? That's the sign that life exists within me. In the same way, the Bible thinks about these good works like the heartbeat or the breath. If God has given you a living heart, if you're a living Christian, well, there's just these things that will happen in your life. They will be the result of the true faith that you already have. Or think of a tree. If a tree is alive, the leaves will turn green. And if you don't see any green leaves, the tree is probably dead. That tree just sits in my yard year after year with no fruit, no green, no life. It's probably not alive. I love Martin Luther's summary to this tension. He said, we are saved by faith alone, but saving faith is never alone. Let me say that again so you get it. We are saved by faith alone. It's not faith and works. But saving faith, real faith, genuine faith in Jesus is never alone. It always wants to love God. It wants to say thank you to God. It does good works, not to earn heaven, but because we've already been given the gift of heaven. I know it's a lot to take in, but it really matters. We believe it is so important to claim we are saved as a gift from God that takes the pressure off and it gives real sinners a chance. And we believe that the true people who have been saved, they want to love God in return. They want to do good works. Salvation isn't their excuse to keep living in sin. Instead, it's the best reason not to, and instead to live their lives for the good God who saved them. So, does the Bible contradict itself? The answer is no. Are we saved by grace? Yes, we are. So why does James care so much about works? Because works are the fruit that prove that God has saved us by grace.